Hi guys, welcome to Root Stem and welcome to this painting tutorial for these magnificent crates. Hi guys, thank you very much for joining me. In today's video I'm going to show you how to paint up these slightly rusted, damaged containers. Can be used for any particular type of game, modern, can be used for 40k, can be used for Conflict 47. They do have a unique-ish look, but of course are kind of grounded. So there could be sci-fi, there could be today's product. Very easy to do. Of all mine, it does say but I war because I've got some transfers. But in today's video, what I'm going to do is to show you how to create these with some chipping medium. You are going to need to use an airbrush, mainly because I think trying to paint over chipping medium just reactivates it and causes a lot of problems. Then you are going to need, weirdly, a brown spray paint. So let's get cracking. So initially we've got the crates painted up brown. This is with Oak Brown from Army Painter. I'll try and include the links and everything else if I can. I haven't done the underside because these are going to be like that on the tabletop. So I don't see the point in doing the under bit. We are now going to create kind of a rust effect before we start putting on the medium. So what we need is a couple of different colours. And the two colours we're going to use is Scrag Brown and Troll Slayer Orange. So we're going to use a sponge. I've got plenty of sponge pieces here. These are kind of like from old bits that you tear out. You can just see here, bits that you tear out of cases that you use for transporting miniatures. And what we're going to do is to put a lot of this on to start with, plastered all over as much as we can, but of course keeping the brown showing through. And then we put a smattering of this across. This will give us a kind of like a rusted look. It'll not be the greatest rusted look, but we are trying to get through this kind of quick. So it'll give the rusted look that we have. We've got a little pad here so we can put some paint on there, get it straight onto the sponge, get it straight onto the model. Let's crack on. So that has been speckly sponged all over. We'll get kind of like a rusty look effect. And now what we're going to do is to use chipping medium. We're going to do it the same way as we did the sponging. So effectively just put it down onto there, get a good blob of it. Get a clean bit of sponge, get some of that on there, and then we're just going to liberally place onto locations. So now that's dry, I've actually got some Cantor Blue in my airbrush, and what we are going to do is to coat the entirety. This is the small one, I've got it on my little turntable. I'm just going to coat all of the model in this. And then we're going to be able to start chipping away. Now add highlights with Calidor Sky. On the big one, we're just going to do exactly the same thing, but we're going to go with some Avalon Sunset and some yellow through the airbrush, and it should give us a very similar looking tone as the blue. So now then folks, this is where kind of a magic happens. So we've got some nice clean water there. We've got an old brush. Bristles are kind of soft, but it'll be fine. We might need an air dryer as well, and we are going to start scraping off the paint. So if you put your brush in there, just give it a really good a semi-tough scrape. As you can see, we are starting to reveal or take off some of that chipping medium. And the reason I've gone for a blue and a yellow on my crates is because it will show through better rather than the red. So make sure to all sides and then dab it off with a bit of tissue. Dry it off as well with a hairdryer. And then, as you can see, we have chips. Now we are going to accentuate these with a bit of silver. So a bit of progress update. I've added some silver streaks, some silver specks, as you can see, to the bodywork, and we've painted in the vent and painted the keypad black. We've been using the AK pens to do this, the play markers, because if I'm honest with you, that's really quick and good for terrain. I'm not particularly fond of them for models, but for terrain pieces they are fantastic. And I'm probably going to paint up my little keypad with a green screen and some white buttons. Again, I've got it's not the play marker version, this is the real colour marker, and I'll just put some dots on there to show the white keypad. I'll put the green out eventually, paint that up, and then we'll crack on with the next stage. Now we've got the crates to where we want them. I am going to be putting some kind of like make them look dirty, but before I make them look even more dirtier than what they are, we're going to put some transfers on. Now the reason we didn't put transfers on before is because we're going to be using water to get rid of the chipping medium, and of course that will bring the transfers off. So we have to do the chipping first, then the transfers, then the dirtying, because then when you do the dirtying it can go over the top of a transfer. You may need to destroy some of the transfer depending on where you're putting it on here. You may need to kind of destroy a little bit of the transfer while you're doing it. Just make sure you've got a nice sharp knife. This tool from Workshop works really well for that as well. Well, mine's a bit knackered now. And I've also got my micro salt and micro set, and I've got some decal fixer as well from Green Stuff World, which we'll be using on this decal fixer. There we go. So let's get some water on these, let's get these transfers added, because that's going to add a massive sense of realism. I always find that terrain, just adding a little bit of transfer or two really propels it into that next step. So let's get transfers added. Now if you've never done transfers before, this is how I like to do it. I like to get a bit of kitchen roll, put it into fold it twice, make a nice little bit of a kind of thickish square. I've got some water which I always stick into an old bottle, and then spray it on and give it a minute or two just to be able to soak through. Sometimes you might find yourself with some older transfers. If you do, they're going to be a lot more difficult to shift. I always find them, especially for a really old, they can be a little bit awkward to move. While that is while that is coming away from the backing plate, I'm going to get an old brush. I'm going to get some micro set, and then wherever I want one of the transfers to go, so let's say that world one, I'm going to put it here. I'm going to kind of paint the area with the set. Test, will that come off? Probably not. You can put a bit of this onto it as well, because it will soften the transfer while it's on the backing plate. No, I really need some more water. Put a bit more water on and it's starting to come away. So we're going to get transfer, get the item. You might not be able to see this, so it's kind of just I do sometimes use my fingers. Oh no! Come on, you know you want to come off. There we go. Bit bar set. Place. Bit of rust on there, but rather than cutting that up, what I might do is add a bit of orange, obviously brown paint. I'm going to leave that for a minute, And then once I've left it for a minute, I'm going to get some kind of fancy tissue that I've got, or other kitchen roll. Don't use, try not to use tissues because it can break away. And then you just kind of apply a bit of pressure right on top of it, right on top. So you're trying to get the moisture away. And then that's going to put it in there. Once it's nice and set, give it about 20 minutes. And then put a layer of microsol on. You can do that a couple of times. I normally give it about an hour between each coat. Make sure that you definitely give it an hour from putting that on before you put that on, otherwise you create some form of weird paste. So decals on, a little shiny sometimes. I didn't actually need to use the microsol, but simply because it's a flat area. So I'm going to straight into the decal fixer. We're going to get this on straight from the actual bottle. I'm going to use one of them child's toys. This is a bit like a varnish. Don't put it on too thick. Try and just put a little bit on. I have squirted way too much into that. And this will kind of paint the whole panel though. So for example, if you've got this on here, paint the whole entire thing. Don't just paint the little tiny bit. You need to paint the entire panel. Then we're going to cut back in with a little bit of scrag brown, just to put on top of some of these transfers. This will give it and make it match up better than just tearing off the pieces. That one I'm going to leave. And then maybe even go back on and do the that one definitely needs it. That needs to be a bit earlier. I'll go back on and do a little bit of silvering just to make sure that it looks like it's cutting straight through to the appropriate. Now what I'm going to do is to kind of dirty up the bottom. We've got some Steel Legion drab in the airbrush, all nice and dirtied up, and we're just kind of blow. We're just going to kind of spray in a swirling pattern at the bottom. Maybe go up a little bit every now and again, just to give the crate some dirt. Finish these guys off, what we are going to do is to put a little bit of Shabty and just dry brush all over in spaces. Don't put it on heavy, it needs to be very light. I'm going to be using a makeup brush to do it. I'm sure you guys know how to dry brush. And there we go, 2 finished crates, all damaged, dirtied, and all dressed up, ready to play on the Battletop. Now, I have given them a quick varnish with some Mecha Gloss varnish for an airbrush to make sure that they're quite sturdy, and we're not going to get chipped anytime soon. I'm not quite sure. I have used resins before, but this is 3D printed resin. I don't really know how a big knock will operate. I know how it works and everything else. I'm quite still new to the nuances of 3D prints, if I'm completely honest with you. But thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoy the final outcome, and please like, share, subscribe and hit that notification button if you do want to see more. The videos are few and far between, mainly because I'm working all the time, but I'll get as many out as I possibly can and get you guys taught how to paint in a very traditional style. And see you next time.